And then you look at space. The Chinese are really going forward very aggressively with their space program, the
Yeah, what are they
taikonauts.
doing?
Well, they're gonna at the rate if we cut our NASA funding and look at all the great things NASA has done. I love
Right.
NASA.
I love NASA too.
And we cut the funding and we lose that momentum of wanting to put a lunar colony on Mars and on the moon and get to Mars first. The Chinese aren't slowing down there. They're behaving like we did after World War II with the NIH, the National Science Foundation, and in the 50s and 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, even in the 2000s, and now with DARPA.
With DARPA.
Yeah, they're creating the same kind of mechanisms to surge their capability. So when you kick out, I'm going to say this publicly on this show, when you kick out tens, hundreds of thousands of really bright Chinese graduate students and
Right.
postdocs, we're shooting ourselves in the foot. Now, I've talked to leading counterintelligence experts. I've met them at conferences, shaking their head, asked these questions.
They're like, they're spying
They're
on
spies.
us here.
Yeah, some of them are.
Yes.
When Deng Xiaoping did the opening up in 1979 and started sending these students to America, he was asked, are you worried that some of them won't come back? He said, no. If 5% come back and help us out, we're good with that.
That's right.
You know, and that's during Xi Jinping's time, they've tried to lure them back with the Thousand Talents program. If you think of a Chinese scientist who got his PhD and did a postdoc at Harvard or Duke or UCLA or Stanford, and they're crackerjack scientists in biomedicine, let's say, or robotics at Caltech or something, and we tell them, oh, you got to go stand in line, and we're cutting grants for NSF, NIH, and all that. You won't be able to get a grant. And she's saying, we'll give you all the grants you want. We'll give you all the techs you want, labor to work in the lab. We'll give you all the lab space you want. Oh, and you can have a nice apartment too. And we'll give your wife a nice job, and your kids can go to a nice school. You can help out China and be a patriot. That would be hard for somebody who's starting a family and finished their training to turn down.
Right.
We need to do that. We used to do that really well. You look at the stats, a lot of Nobel Prize winners are Asian American immigrants. A lot of startups. I think half the startups in Silicon Valley are Asian American immigrants. If you look at the Howard Hughes Medical Institute scholars around the country, Texas has like 20. 5 of them are Chinese. They came in the 80s and 90s. And one of them, I think he won the Lasker Prize. That's like a precursor to a Nobel Prize. So these are people with immense talent, and we want to draw them in and keep them here to help our country.
We do, and there's got to be ways, to your point about and it's a legitimate concern about spying and stuff like that. There has to be ways to mitigate that, or also take a page out of China's book, like you said in 1979 when their leader opened up the exchange for Chinese people to be able to come here. He was playing the percentages game, which is, there will be a lot that don't come back, but we'll take the ones that do. And I think to some extent you could play that game a little bit here, like, there will be some that spy on some things, but we're going to have enough that are here to take the talent to build, which is, people are uncomfortable with that, but that might be the way to do it.
The new Cold War is not like the old Cold War. The new Cold War of the 21st century is a war of human capital and talent. Whoever has the most talent wins.
I agree. That was the thing, though, the speed. In Kai-Fu Lee's book, I think it's called AI Superpowers.
Yeah.
Is that right?
That's right.
It's funny. The very first podcast I ever recorded, I put out 10 the first day I went public with this thing, but number 6 was the first one I ever actually recorded. There was a whole segment where I was talking about that book because it just blew my mind. But he opened my eyes when he painted a scene in one of the early chapters, might have been the first chapter, of a college campus in China in, I believe, 1999 or 2000, where he was at the time living there or visiting or whatever it was. And he witnessed at night, I think it was like on a Friday night, all these students went out onto the street and they didn't go out on the street to party. They went out on the street to like study together. And he said at this time, you could make the argument by certain metrics that China was still like a third world country.
Yeah, in 1998, yeah.
Right. And within a decade, not at all. Basically, what he was saying is, if you look at the gap in technology between us and them in 1999, if you're listening, not watching, I'm holding one hand way up and one hand way below. It's like this. And then within like 10 to 15 years, it goes like that and almost evens out. And now when we're talking about something that you brought up like AI, the fear here is when you have a tyrannical government who's just trying to win a race, we got to worry about it here, but like they're damn well not thinking about the humanity implications of what this could be. You know what I mean? And if they get somewhere fast, let's say they get to something sentient first, I mean, we might be fucked.
Well, and then you look at space. The Chinese are really going forward very aggressively with their space program, the Taikonauts.
What are they doing?
Well, they're going to, at the rate, if we cut our NASA funding, and look at all the great things NASA's done. I love NASA.
I love NASA too.
You know, and we cut the funding and we lose that momentum of wanting to put a lunar colony on Mars and on the moon and get to Mars first. The Chinese aren't slowing down there.
So they're ramping that.
They're ramping that up. They're ramping that up. Yes. The astronauts in China are national heroes. So you create role models for the next generation to say, we want to be like them, the way that the Right Stuff people were heroes when I was a little kid. I was obsessed with NASA when I was a kid. You know, I remember Mercury.
You want to be an astronaut?
No, I don't. I'm not techie enough. That's a tech culture. That's an engineering culture. I know. I've met astronauts in Moscow. I've got to talk to them. I have friends that have worked with NASA physicians. I've met astronauts at receptions for Yuri Gagarin's family in Moscow. They're incredible people. They're incredibly brilliant people. I spent an hour talking to Chris Cassidy, who's now retired, flew multiple space missions, was a Navy SEAL, highly decorated in Afghanistan. Then he went back to school and got a master's degree at MIT. These people are like they get higher degrees like in their sleep. They're like, oh, it's fun, it's easy, you know. And then he became an astronaut, really an amazing
different
guy.
Level.
They're at a whole different level.
It's interesting that you say, for example, in China, the astronauts are national heroes. This is one thing I bring up a lot. It sucks to say it, but you know, an advantage that a totalitarian regime does have is, I always cite the TikTok example. Since they don't have free speech and freedom of choice there, they get to decide their kids in China, their TikTok feeds for their 9-year-olds turn off at 9 o'clock or whatever it is. And when it's on, it's nature videos and science videos and math and making learning fun, if you will. Ours is 24/7 and kids are watching titty videos when they're 9, right? And so another extrapolation of that is they can make their astronauts, they can make sure those are the people that are marketed so that the kids want to grow up to be that. Whereas here, you know, the influencer who's doing a prank video on fucking Park Avenue out here might win the attention, which is fine. But like, we don't have, I remember when I was growing up, so many kids, you'd ask them what they want to do. They want to be an astronaut. They want to be a firefighter. They want to be a police officer or whatever. And I say this as someone sitting here doing YouTube right now. But like now when you talk to kids, almost everyone's like, oh, I want to be an Instagram influencer or a YouTuber or whatever. And that's great. But when mathematically everyone wants to do that and you're not putting forth the things that drive humanity forward as well in other ways, meaning when you don't have built-in diversity with that because the free market is pushing all towards one area, they have an advantage over there because they can push that diversity too.
Yeah,
you know,
and they have numbers, and like they build up their sports program for the Olympics.
That's right.
That's a classic example. Their Olympic athletes are considered national heroes.
Yeah.
So they can sort of direct the party, and she can set the pathway where they want society to go. It's a different culture. It's a different system. It's a very tight authoritarian system, but they're going to make an argument works for us.
Yes. Thank you guys for checking out this clip. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. It is a huge, huge help. And if you'd like to check out this clip's full podcast episode, that link is in the description below or right here. And finally, you can follow me on Instagram and X by using the links in my description below.